Okay, so we have an object. We want to add some colors, some material qualities to it, some textures to it. What we need to do here is go to the bottom palette, and this down here is your materials palette. If you go to Create, just click Create and grab a new material. It's going to pop in a default sort of white material. Okay, you can use the controls in the Attributes Manager to change it. I like to double click this just so I can see the whole palette up here. I think it's really helpful in this way. The first one is color, and any of these things need to be checked in order for them to be applied to your material. So right now you see color is checked and also specular is checked. Specular is like the sort of the shiny glossy type of surface that it has, or it's not quite reflection, but it gives it a little bit of sheen in that way. So color, under color there's different ways of controlling the menu. You can choose different types of menu, like this one's color table. You can also choose RGB, and you can use the sliders to change the color. You can double click on the button there, and you can use the color picker to change any of the colors. So if you grab a color, you can manipulate and add it into the form in that sort of way. You can also control the brightness. So if right now it's 100%. If I slide that down, it'll make it more dim, and then all the way to 0 would be black. And so you can really control the brightness of the color in that as well. Texture, there's a bunch of default types of textures. So for example, if you go down here, you could choose gradient, and the default one is going to be black and white. But you can click on that, and you can always change the color along the slider and have a gradient, right? And you can also slide these to control how much gradient you want it to have as you go back and forth. In this, then, if you want to go back, just click back to the color palette, and it'll show you what texture you're working with. Now, the cool thing is that you also have a mix mode down here. So if you wanted to have a gradient that's red and white, and then to mix it with green, you can. Right now, it's 100%, so it's going to be only the gradient. But if I take this down to 50, it's going to be a mixture of the green and the red kind of together. So you can get different things to mix together in interesting ways by using those mix modes. If you want to go back to the original color, you can just click on this menu and hit clear, and it will get rid of that gradient. So in this menu, in the texture menu, there's a whole bunch of interesting things to choose. There's also preset ones. Down here there's a whole bunch of preset ones which are fun to play with. And you can click on those, and they'll take you to all kinds of different ways of using that. The last thing is that in this setting, you can also load an image, which is really cool. You can click on Load Image. You can choose. Oftentimes, you can find textures that are seamless. So someone will take a photograph of something, and they'll make sure that the right edge matches up perfectly with the left edge. So when it wraps around the object, you get a seamless sort of texture. So this is just a cracked earth that I have here. It's going to ask you if you want to save it in your project location. You can just click yes, and then you'll get the image of that right on your object. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about using images on objects. Sometimes when you load an image to an object, the mesh kind of has to be regular in order for it to be uniform across. If it's not a regular sort of mesh, it will stretch your image a little bit in funny places. And we'll talk about different ways of controlling that. I mean, but feel free to really play around with that for now, and load in different textures and materials. Okay, I'm just going to clear that out. Diffusion allows the object to be sort of dull. Okay, so you can, if you click that, you won't see much happening right now, but when you apply a light to it, you'll see that there'll be a difference in how the material acts. Luminance will give you a it'll be sort of almost like it's illuminated from the inside. Right now it's at 100%, so it looks like it's totally white. If we bring it down, you can see that it's sort of like, not glowing, but it has as though a light is sort of backlighting it in a way. So that's luminance. Transparency is pretty cool. If you do 100% transparency, you're not going to see the color at all. It's just going to be translucent. If you bring that down a little bit, you'll be able to see a little bit of the color. Okay, so you can control the transparency of an object by the percentage as you go back and forth. And of course, there's lots of different areas in the menu as well for that, which are good to experiment with. Reflection is another one that's used a lot. 100% reflection, it's just going to be like a mirror. Okay, if you change the brightness, then you'll be able to see some of the color through that reflection. Okay, so if it's at 50, you'll see it that's definitely green, but then you'll also see the reflection of the environment around it. So that one's kind of fun. Environment has a bit more to do with when we're using scene rendering and particles and things like that. Fog, you can apply a fog to an object, but this also is good, so the inside of it will look sort of like a foggy, hazy kind of quality. This helps with its translucent as well. You can also apply that to scenes in rendering as well. Bump channel is kind of cool, but the bump channel allows you to have a texture. When you click on it, nothing's going to happen right away. You need to choose a texture. You can also choose an image. A black and white image works really good for this. I'll go into that bump channel a little bit more next class, but an easy one to do here would be to just go down in the bump channel and select noise. And the default is just this very simple noise thing, and when you apply it to the object, you can see it gives sort of a bumpy surface. Okay. And then if you click on that, you can control the contrast, you can control the amount of light and dark, you can control the scale of the texture, so there's a lot of different controls here. You can also choose different types of textures as well. I think if you click on this little arrow, yeah. So any of these textures here, there's all kinds of different types of textures that you can select. Okay, so that becomes kind of an interesting one to play with. The last ones that I think we'll talk about today, we'll talk about alpha next time. Glow is another one that's kind of fun. You see it gives a little bit of a glowing halo around it based on the color. You can also choose a different color to have it. So you can have a green object that glows red if you wanted to in that sort of setting. Okay, so definitely play around with those, see how they manipulate in the Attributes Manager. I'm just going to take this material that we have right here. I'm going to click off of that. And the way to apply this is just to drag it over to the Objects Manager and drop it onto your object. Okay. In the editor view, you won't see a lot of the material, so you'll see a little bit of transparency. You won't see reflection. You won't be able to see the bump channel. So you need to render it in order to be able to see how it applies. So just go up to this first little chop block menu that looks like a play button. Click on this, and it'll give you a render view of your object. Okay. Now, right now, I just noticed I need to control, in order to see the bump channel, I think I need to boost it up a little bit here. So I'm going to make it, I'm going to increase the bump channel, and then also I think the scale needs to be bumped up here. Let's go 200%. All right, there we go. I think I'll be able to see that a little bit better. Still can't see it. Well, let's choose a different object then. Let's get rid of this one. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so now notice the texture across the surface here. You can really control that in many different ways by playing with that bump channel. All right, a few other things here. Let's just take and if you want to add reflection to this object, when you render this out, you notice that you don't see much happening. And this is because there's nothing else in your scene that is able to be reflected. So in order to do this, what I like to do first is to simply drop in a floor, some sort of setting or a base that this thing can sit on. So if you go to Create, Environment, you can get a floor. All right. Floor is always going to drop in at 0, 0, 0. So you can either move your object up, or you can actually move your floor to be, at the bottom of this object here. And I think I'm running out of time, so I'm going to stop this quick.